So let's talk about what happened with the Blood Angels release. Some interesting 40k animation teasers and Easter eggs. The Pariah Nexus cards seem to be back in stock. Kill Team Co-op mode, and a look at a commissioned painting service. Time for a roundup of a whole bunch of 40k news. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today we're talking about a whole bunch of 40k news things, maybe things that didn't really need their entire video all to themselves, so a big collection all together here. There's Blood Angels animation teasers, Pariah Nexus cards, and a few interesting details about the Kill Team Co-op mode, plus a look at a commission painting service from today's video sponsor. Jumping straight into it, and this week's been a pretty big release week for Warhammer 40k, really quite a popular box set going on sale with the Blood Angels army set, with the Codex unique chaplains and a whole bunch of intercessors with Death Company upgrades, plus a Brutalis Dreadnought. I talked through the box set in yesterday's video. Basically it seems like the upshot was that despite it having some flaws like no bespoke Death Company models, it still seemed to be really quite popular with Blood Angels collectors, and the on-paper numbers looking quite a lot better than several of Games Workshop's recent battle forces, even if it didn't seem to be quite as popular as the Deathwing Assault one when put in a head-to-head vote. It's always a bit curious as to whether Games Workshop supplies enough copies of big in-demand box sets to satisfy demand, particularly when they're one-and-done ones like this. So I was interested to see how this one had gone and whether or not people have been able to get their hands on it. For the Warhammer web store, at least at time of recording, it still looks like it's available in the UK and Europe web store and the Australia and New Zealand one. Those seems to have either had shorter supply or more demand over in the USA, given that they went out of stock of it really quite quickly as far as I could tell, just a few hours after its release. Basically it looks like they've had enough of them to satisfy launch day demand in Australia and the UK and Europe, though not enough in the USA, so that's likely where people have had the most trouble. For the discount retailers, again, like quite a lot of times, it really looks like a story of Games Workshop not giving them as many as they wanted. For the most part, anything that was offering these at significant discount did tend to sell out really quite fast. I suspect given the scale of the launch, there's probably a few places that still have it at discount. Feel free to share to any Blood Angels collectors down in the comments if you'd like. I couldn't see anywhere obvious with a quick search that still had supply at discount, though I certainly might have missed things. I did see a few comments being a little bit unimpressed at discounters selling out quite so quickly on various channel posts and previous videos. I think it's worth underlining the fact that they wanted and had budgeted to have far more of these. The system mainly tends to be that they order things from Games Workshop, and then Games Workshop often only gives them a small quantity of what they would want, so it's unsurprising that they don't have enough supply to meet people's demands when Games Workshop don't give them enough. Seems like in the USA they might just genuinely not have had that many boxes to go around given that it's sold out from their web store, but in the UK and Australia looks like they might have a fair bit more. I guess it's possible that if it doesn't go out of stock on the Warhammer web store sometime soon, we might see some of those being passed out to discounters. Basically though, if you went to one of the discount retailers and had it sold out pretty much instantly, it's often because Games Workshop didn't give them as much as they wanted. As for the channel discount retailers, I did notice that Element Games in the UK still has some on sale, but they're at full price, so no discount unfortunately. When they launched, they had a big 20% discount going at £116. That was the case at 10 AM. Though basically they, like everyone else, burnt through all their pre-order stock, so the ones that they could a bit more credibly sell at a discount, and then further supply is basically ordered direct from Games Workshop, which I understand has much narrower margins, hence the price increase later on. It does mean that in the UK, if you still want one, they are available at Element Games or the Warhammer web store, though they're both £145. Though as mentioned, feel free to post to any other discount retailers that have them going cheaper. I had a quick look through a bunch of the more notable names, but I certainly might have missed some with stock. In any case, let me know your thoughts. Were you able to pick up the box set at a discount if you wanted it or not? Next up, I thought I'd talk briefly about a 40k and other Warhammer commission painter called RattleCan Studios, who reached out and asked to sponsor a video, trying to grow their commission painting business. I felt like they were well worth a feature, and could be of interest to at least some of you out there. I do find the entire economics of commission painting kind of interesting, a service that mainly only really appeals to a small demographic of the Warhammer hobby base, but it's an interesting way that a lot of very cool miniatures get on the tables or into people's display cabinets. The people who usually tend to commission armies or models tend to have spare hobby dollars hanging around, but maybe have their time at an extreme premium between busy work and family schedules, or perhaps people making a luxury purchase or two, getting a really cool paint scheme that they wouldn't be able to execute with their own ability, or just saving a bit of time painting if you don't enjoy that as much as, say, the lore or gameplay. It's certainly not for everyone. If you're looking to economise, then obviously painting your own miniatures is going to be way cheaper. It is going to cost a fair bit per miniature just due to the amount of time that you're paying essentially a talented artist to make you something cool to put on the tabletop. And even if it were either free or very cheap, lots of people just absolutely enjoy painting as the hobby in its own right. Even if a fair few folks out there might not be able to match the level of quality done by people who do it as their day job. In any case, as mentioned, one example of a commission painter are RattleCan Studios in the USA, based in Kentucky, and they can paint individual 40k miniatures, squads, or entire armies to request. The idea is that you contact them and give them a rough idea as to what your project is and what you'd like them to do for you, and they can quote you based on their normal prices, and they essentially work with you to try and deliver what you want. With these painting studios, it does tend to be at least fairly flexible, either doing entirely fully painted miniatures from start to finish. It looks like these guys also do a sort of detail-ready miniatures, mostly fairly cleanly airbrush painted with the base colours to allow you to finish them up with picking out the highlights and things. It seems to be run by someone called Morgan Card, an ex-GW employee turned a commission painter working with a small team of 5. Here's just a few examples of their work, just from taking a look through their website. I particularly enjoyed this Imperial Fist army, all looking very striking in yellow, which is a pretty difficult colour to execute. Torgaradon's leading a chunky Gravis force of the Sons of Dawn there, with a couple of Redemptors for some heavy fire support. I think the Dreadnoughts look pretty nice, and I feel like the glow effect on the plasma guns looks really quite fun at communicating object source lighting. Looks like a pretty nice gaming standard paint job to me. For a few other examples of what they've done, here's Freeblade Canis Rex with his las impulsor, and probably quite a popular model to be adding to 40k armies right now with his pretty godly damage abilities. And otherwise we've got a pretty gritty and realistic looking Votan Sagittor. I quite like the way that they've done the armour on that one, and a sadly now Legends Tau Ravana, painted in what I believe is the box art Viola sort of colour scheme. Finally here's a Repulsor Executioner and a Killbot on Great Gnashtooth. I was pretty curious to have a look at their rates, and here's a rough breakdown of what it would cost to commission a squad or army from them. Obviously you need to provide them with the actual miniatures as the things that you want painting, and they can source these locally at 15% off Games Workshop prices through local discounters. And then they have a bit of a rates table on their website. Basic infantry are $15 fully painted for standard stuff on a 25mm base. It looks like for the basing it's an extra $2, and if you want them assembled as well, that's another $3. Medium infantry characters are $50 fully painted. Medium vehicles like a Predator tank or Liam Russ are $125 or $75 to the sort of detail ready, where you can put on the finishing touch details yourself. And then just for interest, a gargantuan vehicle like a Wraith Knight is apparently $205 fully painted, or $125 at that halfway detail ready kind of stage. I do find the economics of that kind of interesting. I'm sure there's plenty of people watching who probably balk at those kind of prices. Say if you're used to, say, a standard Space Marine costing $6 or so and you do the painting work, but if you do break down the amount of time the painters are likely to spend on each miniature, it maybe becomes a bit more obvious from that point of view. For basic infantry and things, I think I'd struggle to paint an individual one in an hour, so $15 wouldn't interest me to paint those sort of things myself, never mind cost of materials and things. In any case, it was interesting to take a look through what one commission painter can do, and a big thank you to them for sponsoring the video, of course. Feel free to check them out if you think that they could help you with a hobby project. I'll give them a link down in the video description. Moving on to some 40k teasers, and alongside the Warhammer Plus new miniature reveals that we had earlier in the week, they do have that really quite cool Inquisitor with the very weird Vox Servitor. After that, Games Workshop also dropped a teaser trailer for a bunch of their animations and things, a few glimpses into the future, and then also a weird sort of meme ideas board type thing, that while most of it looks like jokes of one sort or another, still happen to have at least a couple of things that don't really look like they're jokes for 10th edition, so at least was kind of interesting. In any case, for the animations over winter, they've got Hammer and Bolter with their sort of cartoony style animation series, which had some fun episodes with self-contained stories, both set in Sigmar and in 40k. Being individual stories, I feel like some of them worked a little bit better than others, but in general I found them kind of fun. Then we've got a Sigmar animation called Black Talon, the Tithe series, which we saw the first one of with Sakan and the Apothecary. These ones feel like slightly higher effort animated shorts. I quite enjoyed the first one, and the other ones are going to be completely different and separate stories apparently. And then an animation called Kill Lupercal, which, judging by the styling of it, looks like it's an animation set in the Horus Heresy. In the teaser videos, we've got a bunch of slightly blurry shots of various Warhammer stuff in combat. It was interesting to see some Adeptus RBTs with shotguns and things laying down some lore. Plus, looks like there's going to be some featuring of a chapter of white armoured Space Marines taking to the field, a Terminator squad laying down some firepower on the Tyranids of Leviathan, maybe striking a few similar beats to the launch trailer for 10th edition, though it doesn't look like they're Ultramarines as best I can tell from that. We've also got some sort of power armoured Primaris veteran fighting with a power sword as well. I'd guess probably all from the same animation, and out of the previous title seems likely to be other episodes of that whole Tithes thing, given the slightly more gritty and realistic kind of feel of these. There's also a Sister of Silence running very fast through a forest, and also a Sons of Horror Space Marine being casually trodden on by a Titan, which I'm guessing will be the Kill Lupercal one. Just in the first glance of that, though, the animation quality looks a lot inferior to the other things that were showcased. Otherwise, as part of the promo video, they did a slightly wacky ideas board, supposedly brainstorming other things that they could make for their games, mainly puns and jokes and things, and embracing a fair few community talking points along the way. After all, they're a self-aware company, they do memes. For the most part, it's probably not really worth talking too seriously about, though it was interesting that they had a big Emperor's Children Space Marine pretty central on the ideas board. That's one of the things that they haven't officially announced, but we basically know is coming due to the way that they were treated in Codex Chaos Space Marines. They're highly odds on to get a codex sometime in 10th edition, which should be fun. Otherwise, for fun stuff on their ideas board, they had Primaris Lieutenants with the idea to make more. Definitely playing into the joke there, though to be honest I'm absolutely certain that they will be seriously making more lieutenants at some point in the future, so probably a bit of a non-spoiler there. It is kind of funny that there's legitimately people who would like a Gravis lieutenant, and out of the sort of 15 to 20 odd designs that they've done, they haven't got to that one yet. Otherwise, looks like James Workshop makes an appearance, and the idea to make their plastic Thunderhawk that they did for Aeronautica Imperialis bigger. I'm not sure how close we are to a plastic Thunderhawk for the Space Marines just yet though. Otherwise, some of their post-it notes were kind of fun, mainly slightly daft puns on their current games, things like Thrill Team, Blood Bowling, Necro Blunder, and quite a few more. One was More Time, More Often, I noticed as well. I wonder if there'd be any sort of idea to resurrect that at some stage. Next up, might be worth a heads up that the Pariah Nexus mission cards are back in stock both in the UK and US Canada Games Workshop web stores now. These ones have been gone for really quite a while. Games Workshop sold out of them perhaps surprisingly fast, given that they're supposed to be the main way that you can play their core game for a year. The updated mission set for the Leviathan ones making a few changes, including things like secret missions. I certainly heard a fair few anecdotes of people who basically hadn't been able to find them at a reasonable price anywhere. It wasn't really a great feeling when Games Workshop bigs up a big new season of Warhammer 40k, then doesn't have enough supply to pick up the official way to play it, even if lots of people have made print your own style cards or use the Tabletop Battles app. In any case, it looks like the physical copy cards seem to be back in stock in the UK, Europe, USA and Canada web stores. Might be helpful to a few of you out there. I guess that discount retailers might well start to get them back in stock for them as well, but might take a little bit longer as they order in stock and it filters through. Still looks like they're out of stock in the Australia web store at time of recording though. I bear in mind that the shelf life on these I'd expect to be around about something like 10 months at this point. Games Workshop looks like they're going to be doing 10th edition in 3 different seasons. We've had the Leviathan one, now it's the Pariah Nexus one, and then they'll probably have one last update in around about June-July time in 2025. Next up, one Kill Team preview that I was quite interested to take a look at was the Kill Team co-op mode that Games Workshop announced with that big Hivestorm reveal preview. Basically a way to play Kill Team, the skirmish sort of mode of 40k when you command a squad of around 10 operatives, and either play solo or team up with a friend and play with your models against NPC opponents in a bit of a player versus game mode, as opposed to having the default just being 1v1 as is almost always the case in Warhammer. I feel like this maybe turned a fair few heads, and could have a few more people check in on the new edition of Kill Team, even more so than they would have had otherwise. Games Workshop released an article with a few details on this the other day. They call it Joint Ops. Essentially, it's player versus environment missions where you can play with 2 players or 1 player and then either take one standard kill team or 2 equal halves of separate kill teams in any combination. So you could have Space Marines with Imperial Guard or weird combos like Drukhari Mandrakes with Night Lords, and basically work together to take out the enemies. Then, as you play the missions that are designed for them, you play against antagonists called non-player operatives, or NPOs. The idea is that these ones will outnumber the kill team operatives, and individually be a fair bit weaker and have fewer options available to them. and they each act by a simple set of instructions. Each of the missions apparently have a wound count of the number of MPOs that you can choose, and you can basically repeatedly select operatives for them until you've met the required amount. So you could either be playing against a few big tough operatives or a whole load of weaker hordes. The non-player operatives basically work to two different sets of instructions. Ranged ones use the marksman rules. Basically they work through the set of instructions, so they'd fall back if they were in combat, shoot the enemy if they weren't, reposition to cover if that's possible, or dash to cover if the previous wasn't possible. On the other hand, the brawlers are melee types, fighting in melee if possible, and then basically moving closer and charging if they're not already in close combat. Another interesting idea for this game mode was that the MPO profiles are model agnostic, which I think is maybe a fairly sensible decision as they don't know exactly what sort of models players might have in their collection, and I guess trying to adapt literally every model in Kill Team to work in this playstyle would have taken perhaps a slightly disproportionate amount of time and thought. For example, they give a tough brawler model, basically representing a somewhat elite medium infantry. They recommended that you could maybe use a gene stealer for that, and they have 10 wounds. And then they gave the example of a heavy marksman MPO. This one with some elite shooting, a good save and lots of wounds that could say represent a space marine. In any case, at least on the face of it, it does sound kind of interesting in principle. I'm sure there's a fair few people out there who would happily give that a go if there was someone to show them the ropes. I think it's maybe not the worst idea to have a more relaxed and non-confrontational gaming sort of mode available. It seems kind of fun to have the idea of teaming up with a friend too to try and overcome a difficult challenge. I feel like if it's popular and well received, there'd be at least a reasonable chance that they could try and do something for 40k next edition when it comes around. I've certainly seen a bit of discussion online as to whether or not Games Workshop have been taking inspiration from Warhammer's Horde mode, which I believe is basically a 40k mod which tries to make the same sort of things happen for Warhammer 40k, playing against an endless horde of enemies. And in general, where I've seen that discussed, it was pretty well received. Will be interesting to see if some sort of cooperative play Warhammer 40k emerges next edition or something. Finally, while we're talking about Kill Team, there was also another one of those lore articles drop. This one's the fourth in the series, and sees battle join between the two sides. The lore in brief of the new Kill Team launch is that the forces are fighting over the great gun of Vulcus, a great big Imperial superweapon that protects the planets. Seeing that the superweapon was in danger, Imperial commanders sent some Tempestus Aquilons in to defend it, and seeking to neutralise the weapon, Tower Commander Shadowsun dispatched Vespid and Pathfinders to take it out. From the third story, apparently some Orc commandos are also very tempted to get in on the action and try and loot themselves some massive firepower. It seems that after all the talking of the setup ones, this one was mainly a few action set pieces. It basically follows a very similar narrative to the Kill Team animated trailer that we saw, with the Tempestus Aquilons dropping in to take out Vespid, told from the point of view of an Aquilon sniper. As they fight against the Vespid, both sides taking heavy casualties and getting to see a bunch of the Vespid toys in action along the way, with their new rail rifles, grenade launchers and flamers. It's basically implied that all over the Great Gun, Aquilon teams are dueling with their Tau contemporaries, Kroot and Pathfinder teams attacking them as well, and the action ends with the Aquilons holding out but taking heavy casualties, and the Vespid back off to regroup but are very much still a threat. Doesn't sound like any Orc commandos are joining the battle just yet. Will be interesting to see exactly how they fit in, whether they're just lore and narrative, or if there's some sort of miniature support coming for them at some point. I guess if so, it would likely be in the next update for Kill Team boxes for this new edition, so the one after the launch box, though it certainly could just be a lore teaser for getting some commandos in on the action with their fun Kill Team kit. In any case, I'll leave that there for this one. Let me know your thoughts as always. What do you make of the Blood Angels release and Games Workshop's teasers? And would you be tempted to try out that Kill Team co-op mode that's coming out? Look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. As mentioned, a big thank you to RattleCan Studios for sponsoring this video. I'll leave a link to them down in the video description. Could be of interest to some of you if you did want some fancy commission painted 40k of one sort or another. In any case, a massive thank you for listening. Look forward to hearing all your thoughts down in the comments, and feel free to subscribe to Allspec's Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. I'll certainly keep regular 40k videos coming just about every day. Finally, if you'd like to help support the channel, I do have a Patreon page which is linked down in the video description. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with the chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.